a comedian that I'm going to be working with shortly to film my next album. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, as well as Wyatt and I figuring out how the world works and fixing it. So thanks for joining in on Monday night. It is Stine Has Issues, and the song goes a little like this. Welcome. I am God's comic Stine, and this is Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. I am God's comic, and my son is God's comic lineage. He has issued from my loins at a very young age. As a matter of fact, he was born as a brand new baby. Why, do you remember that day, or is it still kind of fuzzy?
No, I remember that day fondly.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about it. What was the first thing you remember coming out of the womb and whatnot?
I remember the first thing I ever said.
What was that?
Ah!
Fear. Yeah, it was fearful. Fear factors, scary.
I feel like that's most people's first word.
Well,
it's just incoherent screaming.
You know what? If you were in a bag for like a year and you had no other reference points, and suddenly they just tore you out of the bag and you're like, what is this? Yeah, it'd be a little spooky, a little freaky. That's probably why babies can't see real good right off the bat. Wyatt? I don't think they can see at first.
Really?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think they can. No, I don't think they can see. It's really fuzzy and confusing.
How would you know that, though? Like, how would you actually, like, go about studying that?
I think it's the same way that they tell us that dogs only see in black and white. How would they know?
Oh, so they just guess?
That's my point. How would you can't talk to your dog and ask him, how do you see? Here's a chart. Do you see color? Do you see red? Do you see blue? Do you see brown? And if you could have that conversation, the last thing you should be discussing is how well he sees, because you got a talking dog. Go make some money, son.
I mean, hey, people paid good money to see a headless chicken. That's something that can actually exist.
Well, it did exist, and it lasted for what, like 2 weeks or something?
No, well, no. The chicken like choked to death.
No, I heard there was a guy that like cut off a chicken's head or something or other, and it still lived for like a long time.
That's what I'm talking about. Then it was a sideshow attraction.
Oh,
for like years.
Did he stay alive for years?
Yeah, literally.
How did he eat?
He used the guy who owned him used like an eyedropper to feed like, stuff into its gullet that was still
what
milk.
kind
and then
of living hell must that chicken have been? Can't speak, can't talk, can't squawk, can't eat, can't swallow, can't hear, can't see, and it's just moving around. Well, it doesn't have a brain.
Actually, that's how it kept alive. A tiny part of its brain was like missed when he cut the head off, and that's how it lived. And then it choked to death,
Lord
which
have mercy.
it's gotta be sad if you died to choking to death when you have no mouth.
Why, do you know who's watching us right now?
Nick Kress.
And Michael Quackenbush, or
yes,
the
of course,
Bush Quacker. Hello, Brad Stine, says Nick Kress. Ashley Haas. Hi, Brad White and everyone. Ashley Haas, is she new?
No, not really.
Do we know her?
Yeah.
Where did we meet her?
You put her on the podcast without warning anyone, including me.
Okay. Benjamin Gregory. Good evening, God's Comic Brad Stine. Good to have you back with us, Benjamin. Benjamin was one of the originals, Wyatt. He's one of the first guys that hung in there. He was the first guy that started putting in clips when I would mention something, and next thing I know, the link would be there. And who was that? Benjamin Gregory. You can always count on Benj. Forrest Bainey. Who's got the best name of all? What? Who's got the best name of all?
Forrest Bainey.
Mm-hmm. And is he with us tonight?
Yeah, I see him.
I know. Hey, listen. This thing way uncranked, so my mic was dipping down. Why? Is that is that typical? You're my tech guy. Is that a good thing? No.
Oh no. Yeah, that just happens.
Aaron Oakes back for the highlight of my Monday. Hey, Brad White and everybody else. Dusty Wilhelms here. Stan Stinson. Hello, Warriors. Happy Monday. Rebecca Daly Dwyer. Hello from Belmont, Pennsylvania. Hello to White also. J. Charles Sisti. Hello, Brad. Quackenbush or Bush Quacker is here. Paula Faye Marie Rauchy. She's got a 4-name lady, and she's my favorite therein. Karen Boyd. Hi, all. And Brad and Wyatt Let's see. Benjamin said that babies cannot see at birth. They go by smell and sound. Their eyes are still developing. So Benjamin basically knows everything about everything. And guys like that are annoying on my thread, if you ask me, son.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? Kick him out?
Nah, we need him. Douglas
Exactly,
Kroll.
yeah.
Hi, Brad. It's Doug again. Carrie Tudor's watching. Marsha Pointer Reed. Hello, Brad and White and everybody. Plenty flour. Hi, Brad. Chicken pot pie for dinner. Now working on coasters for Mother's Day goodie bag for church. She's always making gifts, Wyatt. Doesn't send them to us, but she makes them anyways. So should I complain or should I be happy for the poor saps that finally get a coaster?
I'm still waiting.
I don't have a coaster.
I am still waiting for my cow tongue. I know it's winning you, but come on. I was promised something fun, exciting, and a little bit weird, and I want to get it.
Well, hopefully it's still on the way.
If
Bushcracker said, my last money in Florida, the time to head back up to Indiana for the summer. He goes to Indiana for the summer. Why instead of staying in Florida? Makes sense?
Isn't that like the opposite of birds?
That's what I'm thinking. Aaron Oakes. Live chat not working. What does that mean?
Hold on. You typed in the live chat.
I know.
Live chat not working.
Okay, so there's a disconnect. Clearly.
I want you to think real long and hard about the implications of that. Who did that?
Right.
Who
That
wrote
was Aaron Oakes.
Aaron Oakes.
Okay, Karen Boyd gave him a nice question mark. Nick says, Michael Quackenbush, all the snow is going to Minnesota. Let's see. By the way, Carrie Tudor says, hey, all Brad and White, all the people, it's going to be my birthday. This Thursday, I'll be 52. Good for you. You made it to 52. I'm grateful for you. Cindy Jankovic, good evening, Brad and White and everyone. Hope everyone's having a blessed day. Me too. Happy birthday, saith Ashley to who was it that just said she's turned in some? Carrie Tudor. Devon Zern, what's this about? It's a podcast, Devon, that you might enjoy. You might not. You might despise it. And if you want to talk about despicable things, jump in. I'm a free speech advocate. Let's see. Joshua Hernandez. Hey, Brad Stine. Hope all is well. It is. God is on the throne. So there we have it, Wyatt. We've got all of our folks jumping on. We got a nice bump. We got about 75 people watching as we speak. And what they're curious about, I think, Wyatt, is everything that's happening so far on this special week. It is the week prior to the Resurrection Day. Well, you know what the Resurrection Day represents, of course.
The resurrection
of
Jesus.
What did he?
Yeah, Jesus.
And how did he pull that off?
He died.
Right, and then
He didn't.
he came back to life.
Yes.
And that's an amazing thing. And if you do that, it either means you are God or we are living in some sort of computer programming system that we're not aware of. We're a brain in a vat somewhere, and they're telling us crazy stuff that's impossible, and we're buying into it.
So are we one giant brain in a vat, or is every person their own regular-sized brain?
I would say it's just one gigantic brain, and then maybe we're just like a pathway, maybe just sort of a.
So it's a giant, super intelligent brain with just the biggest case of multiple personality disorder.
One thing for sure, it's not letting us in on it because we always have to speculate about it. It doesn't let us know it's actually true. He never tells us that. Well, yeah, it is a brain. All right, you're onto us, and then he moves on to another planet, makes a new one. Who knows?
No, it's just that one of the voices in its head keeps telling it. It's already done that, so don't worry about it. They don't need to know.
Well, I wanted to ask you about something today. Get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
So I was, there has been a little bit of a controversy about a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's called Elevation Church. Have you heard of it, Wyatt?
I have not. This is the first I'm hearing of any of this.
Have you seen Elevation Church?
No, it's too high up.
Too high. So yeah, you need my binoculars. It's why it's a unique church, but very unattended.
Very exclusive. Only a few clientele.
Got to have a jetpack, got to have a helicopter,
or
bungee cords,
or just be a pigeon.
Or a pigeon, yeah, and maybe you could put a little GoPro in the pigeon, and we could watch remotely as the pigeon gets up there and observes the sermon. Steve Furtick is the name of the pastor. I've seen him a little bit here and there on television. I think he's got a show on like TBN or something or somewhere. And young guy, kind of a young guy. I'm going to guess he's in his 30s, maybe 40s. But there was a bit of a controversy because they were inviting folks to the Easter service. If you are offended by the word Easter, thinking it's actually a reference to Ishtar and that it's somehow worshiping a foreign god, we'll call it Resurrection Sunday, if that helps everyone. That way everybody can fit, because even if you don't care by calling it Easter, we all agree it's Resurrection Sunday. But if you don't want to use the word Easter, resurrection still works, because that's what we're celebrating, actually. I don't even know who Ishtar is. I couldn't worship Ishtar if I wanted to, because I don't know what Ishtar does. And I'm not interested in Ishtar, interested in Jesus. And so they decided that they were going to kind of put out their message, come on out, please come and join us for the church service. But they said that they wanted to make sure that there were certain words that they would not use in the invitation. They would not use the word Calvary, which of course is where Jesus was crucified, the most heinous act in human history. God dies for humanity, the innocent God who dies for the sake of his creation. I mean, you want to talk about love, that's crazy. They were not going to use the word resurrection. Now, being as Easter or resurrection or Passover or whatever words that allow you to follow this through line, not be offended, resurrection is literally the greatest moment in human history. God dies, returns from death. He's not a myth. This isn't a Zeus thing. This isn't Osiris, which people say, oh, it's a death and resurrection myth that Jesus is one of them. No, he was like cut up into like 12 pieces, and he was scattered everywhere, and the only thing they could find was his, well, you know, it's a family show, but they could find that of his and somehow kept it alive. And it's definitely more zombie-ish, not a resurrection of an actual human being who actually lived, Jesus Christ, who actually came back fully bodily, say, look what I've done. I am in fact God. Fear not. You can follow me into eternity with perfection with the Heavenly Father. So very unique story, one of a kind. It's the greatest story of all time. It's coming up this Sunday is when we're going to celebrate. And so they didn't want to use the word blood of Jesus either. And of course, the blood of Jesus is the sacrifice. The blood is always used as the cleansing of sin. It's how God sees us through the filter of this framework of himself, of this death of the God-man and return. So he took the price for us. So they didn't want to use any of those words because they said, you know, we are looking at this as bringing first-time church goers, people who have never come to church, people who don't want to go to church. And we simply don't want them to, we don't use any terms or any words that would make them feel not included, make them feel out, make them feel not connected. I don't understand it. I don't understand what that means. This, you know, I think one thing we have learned through the seeker-friendly movement with Saddleback Church and then in Chicago, Bill Hybels' church, they all have kind of come to the conclusion that the seeker movement was a failure. It brought people in, but it watered down the gospel. The whole point was, why don't you go to church? Well, it makes us feel guilty. Well, it's judgmental. Well, you know, we don't feel welcome. So they tried to fix all those things and basically took away the very thing that church's job is to do, is yes, to welcome you, but to welcome you into a place where you can change your life and get healed and get free and be connected to your Creator. And it's not free. It costs you something. You got to bow your knee. You've got to humble yourself. You have to admit, I'm a sinner. I deserve God's punishment, and I'm accepting his way out. So I don't understand the idea that we don't want to use anything that wouldn't bring them in, because somehow this makes them not feel connected or in some ways left out. It doesn't make sense to me because it's literally the framework of Christianity. It's what makes it what it is. If there is no resurrection, Christianity is a waste of time. It's got some good ideas. Maybe you can apply some, not apply others, choose the ones you want, not the ones you don't want. But if it's true that Jesus is God and died and rose from the dead, we needed that blood desperately. We needed that resurrection desperately. We needed Calvary desperately. That's what should drive us to our knees and to our face and say, I cannot believe you would do this for me. So God is sitting there. I wonder if he wonders, what is it you're afraid of? People should want to hear the story that is so unique and that it should be inspiring to them. So what do you think? What do you think that churches should not use Christian or theological historical terminology or biblical terminology in case it makes somebody not want to come to church? What do you think about that? Why? Because I know you have the answer to this.
Pretty sure if a few words are what it takes for you to not go to church, you probably weren't going to go anyway.
I'm guessing that's probably a very, very fair statement. I think that if you have to be coerced to go to church, maybe it wasn't the first thing on your mind on a Sunday. Maybe perhaps you're sleeping off the hangover. Perhaps you are sleeping in, and then you're going to go have brunch. But I think that is true. The idea that we are trying to make Christianity safe, it's not. Make it welcoming, but I can't make you comfortable when you are lost. If you're lost, I'm trying to get you back home. And that means I got to call out into the mist. That means I got to ring bells. That means I got to shoot up flares. I've got to do things to say, you need to come home. Most people probably, if you look at the totality of humanity, Wyatt, from the beginning of time till today, probably the most amount of people will not go to heaven in numbers. So it's crucial that we say all the right words that could give somebody a chance to repent and to be free. So I'm curious about that. Is there anybody, if you all want to put in ask a question or your thoughts on this, if anybody maybe mention a question or an answer or thought about it that way that we might want to go into. I just was curious because, this is Resurrection Week, man. I mean, this is the time that these words need to be used most distinctly because it is a one-of-a-kind celebration. We don't know when the actual Resurrection Day was, but we chose a day to represent it, and that to me is plenty. What do you think, son?
Yeah. I'm not seeing any comments from people about that, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting development that's been happening the past few years.
Well, what do you think? What to you and kids? You're 27. What do humans your age think about the Earth and what's happening on this Earth? Do they feel like something is afoot? Do they feel like something is way sideways? Do they not pay attention? What do you guys talk about? Do you think something's going nuts? You're a nerd. You're filled with nerds. You do all kinds of nerdy stuff. So you guys talk nerdy stuff about the end of the world?
Absolutely not.
Something happening over there,
The audience just wanted to hear a bit better.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure how this.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep it.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Okay. Is that better? Yeah? Okay. So what I'm wondering about is your age demographic, 27, 26, 25. I'm sorry, guys, but I just, are you working on the volume a little bit there, buddy? Okay, because it keeps kind of going weird in my earphones, so I'm not sure what's going on. Anyways, okay, now that sounds good. So, what do you think? Do you guys ever have conversations, or do you ever discuss the end of the world, or what seems to be crazy happening right now on this earth?
Honestly, there's too many crazy things going on for me to even like remember it all.
Mm.
It's like every day there's like at least a dozen new controversies I have to sift through, and it's tiring.
Mm. But I mean, you guys don't necessarily have any kind of sort of through line of discussions about things that are happening. You don't, nothing comes up about like the WEF or talking about just the changes in America and what's happening in our moral structures and so forth. Nothing.
Nothing that I can think of right now, but again, honestly, it's not the kind of thing that I'm actively pursuing. I mostly just like video game news, not the world around me, because that's already a lost cause.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that the thing that I really want to speak about for a moment is the beauty of the body. You know, when I started this podcast, I really was trying to understand, and I've said this a million times, what do we want to talk about? What kind of guests do we want to have? What is the foundation of this going to be? And of course, what the line that ended up coming up, I came up with was, we're comedy, because I'm a comedian. Conservatism, I have a conservative philosophical base. Christianity, that's my religious belief, and basically the single most important thing in my life. Comedy, conservative, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. So we're trying to get to truth. We're trying to get to some insight. We'll have some fun at one point. We'll definitely stress the Christianity, because Christ is God. This is, in fact, the only thing that matters on earth. Conservatism is just more, I don't see that, when I say conservative, I made that on purpose. I didn't say Republican. Again, I have no respect for any of them left anymore, any parties. They've all sold us out. They've all abandoned us to the most, existential threat maybe in our history. So, but conservatism, simply conserving wisdom, conserving history, conserving the Constitution as was originally intended, conserving strength and discipline, conserving sovereignty, conserving free speech, conserving those things that give it a foundation is what matters to me. But the body is something so important to me. Last week, I had a prayer request. I told folks that if you would just pray for me. The enemy is on the go and has decided to send a few arrows my way. But I want to tell you a little bit about what is so important when it comes to us in this day and age as believers, being one, fighting together, lifting each other up, defending each other, praying for each other, watching each other, trusting each other, because we're going to need each other in a way that maybe we've just never experienced in the United States. And I want to tell you guys a story to go along with that. Many years ago, I worked for Promise Keepers, which is was at that time the top men's gathering in the United States. We would go to, when I went, it was in the 2000s, 2003 and 4 and 5, 8, I think 7. So we were in basketball arenas. So we would get 10 to 15,000 men at these events. And I would perform, and they would laugh and loved me, and it was a great time. It was a wonderful time in my life. And there came a day where they decided not to bring me back one year. They're going to try a different direction or try something else. And I thought to myself, the men really seem to enjoy what I do. I'm very raw. I'm very, cut to the chase, shoot, right between the eyes. So I decided, we got with my manager at the time. I don't have any of that now, but I did. And we said, we wanted to see if we could put a men's event together, a men's gathering. where guys could just be raw with each other. It was men only, no women allowed, where guys could kind of talk about the things they deal with. Things could be discussed, things could be brought up that you wouldn't normally do in front of your wife, perhaps, or in front of a woman. And we just wanted to see if we could have something so real and so natural and so organic that men could get some healing there and really find a safe place, a tribe to gather where their faith really could be powerful and robust. And it wasn't in some kind of churchianity. And we call it God men. God men, where men are seeking God. And that's really as simple as that. Well, come to find out, when we started putting this together, I don't remember how exactly it happened, but somewhere we got an article about us maybe in the Tennessean, but somewhere along the lines, the Los Angeles Times got wind of this event, and they were asked if they could come cover the event. This is probably 2008-ish, I'm going to guess. Anyways, they did. And so we were concerned because it was like a woman. We're like, no, the whole point was no women involved. And not because we're anti-women, we just wanted a place where men didn't have to have any qualms about the fact that there was a female there. Anyways, in the course of this event, I said something to the effect of, God wants your full life. He wants complete surrender, that there is no other choice. This is no compromise. And anything else that you would want in your life is BS. Now, I said the word, but it was BS. And then I kind of gave it a pause, and that's kind of shocking who he said BS in church, the full word. And I said, and listen, here's the thing. If that shocked you, that I said that, I want you to know that the Bible uses that term. In the Bible, where it said, I consider my formal life as dung. The word is much more graphic, the word of excrement. Of course, it's using the SH version of it. And I'm just not using this because I'm trying to be sensitive to the Christian listeners that will listen to this on Spotify and so forth. Maybe they have their family with them. But I'm just telling you what happened. But the Bible said my formal work was like ish. And I'm like, it is. That the Bible's trying to be real and down to earth and raw. This is how much God says what you try to achieve means. It means nothing. Commitment to me, full commitment to Christ, full, bold, unapologetic, bowing the knee to the King, giving yourself over. You're dead, you're crucified, you're a slave. This is what I demand. It's a discipline. It's hard to be a disciple. Anyways, it was a powerful moment. And the men really were moved, not just by that, but they had some great speakers, had some wonderful things. Well, they wrote a story about it. And when the story came out, somewhere along the lines, the story said something effective. He said that Brad Stine said the word BS. Brad Stine, BS. He said it. He said, and somehow, I don't know how, I don't remember, it's been so long. Somehow they alluded to the fact that, he thinks they should curse, that people should curse in church. I never said that. I made a very raw word about what your sin represents based on what the Bible said about it, so the men could feel this was kind of a guy thing and we're really cutting to the chase. Well, the AP picked up this story and it went out throughout the whole country. So now the whole country has heard that I believed that we're supposed to be able to curse. Never said that, didn't believe it, didn't do it. But they put it in this LA Times article, put it out there. Shows that I had booked began to cancel me. This is, 15 years ago. They fired, I had gig going on. I said, what's going on? What's going on? Well, we don't buy into that the curse. I didn't do that. I didn't say that. That's a lie. It wasn't real. It's not true. And I'll never forget why one of the churches said, even if this isn't true, we're not going to bring it in. They didn't even want to give me the benefit of the doubt. And this is all done under the auspices of being holy and committed to biblical formulas and expectations. And I thought to myself, and I said to them, I said, well, if you really, this is about biblical things, why didn't you do what the Bible says, which is call me first and ask me if this is true? Is this what you believe? If I said, yes, we should be going around cursing all the time and swearing all the time, then make a call. But you didn't even ask. It was a lie, and you bought the lie of a secular, mainstream, anti-Christian rag, and it cost me my reputation. It cost me my ability to minister, and the devil got a nice, swift kick there and it took me years to just try to rebuild my ministry. And I will say this, it forced me on my knees. I said, God, I don't know what's going on, but it brought me to a place where I really understood this is why I'm here. I'm not here to be a famous comic. I'm not here to be anything but a Christ follower and using the unique gifts he's given me to tell God's story. And so it had its value, but my point was this. We can't do this anymore. We have to trust each other. We have to talk to each other, listen to each other. And when difficulties come our way, and when people fall, or when people fail, but they repent and they didn't mean, but there are humans that make mistakes, but they're serving God. We have to lift them up, pull them up, brush them off, fight with them, pray with them, cry with them, weep with them, walk with them. Guys, hell is here, man. It's running rampant, and it's going to be destroying Christians in this nation. They're coming after us. We need to band together and trust each other and love each other and protect each other and defend each other. This is what has to be done. It should be done worldwide. I pray every night when I pray in the morning. I pray for the persecuted church. I have for years. I just felt like, oh my gosh, what if that happened to us? Well, it's going to. And so I just wanted to give you a real experience that I had where, you weren't defended, and nothing breaks your heart like your own brothers and sisters not having your back and fighting with you, especially when a lie was perpetrated. But God Almighty is on the throne. I'm still going through a challenge. I'm asking for your prayers. One day we'll talk about it. Don't worry. And it's not health related. But as a matter of fact, my last heart exam, I've actually begun reversing the plaque. The doctor said I was the first patient he's ever had that actually reversed it. I prayed to God, by the way, that he would melt away the plaque in my heart. Remember when we talked about that? But the lower descending artery, there's still some there, but much less than there was. And also the calcium score's way down. And then I said, I want you to reimagine the cholesterol molecules in my body, that they no longer stick to the sides. So I just prayed that, and it's working. So I actually have a wonderful praise report about my heart, if you can believe that. But I did pray and continue to pray for me and watch God work. He will. We'll have this story down the road. But I'm going to continue to serve God. I'm going to send you to go to churches. I'm going to continue to fight. I'm going to continue to do my next album here shortly and try to just get this into the atmosphere of what God has called me to do. But I wanted to tell you something encouraging and beautiful that happened. As I was going through this, I prayed at night once, and I said, God, normally when we go through difficulties, we get it in the Bible, and we try to find a verse or something just to give us some hope, and we read it, or we'll just like open the Bible and see if it's some magical verse shows up, or we read something and it happens to connect to us at that time, and that's a great thing. But I said, instead, I went to God and I said, do me a favor, Lord, give me a verse. This is your word. You wrote this thousands of years ago. Give me a verse, please. Give me a verse that you want to tell me personally, from you to me, to help me as I go through this challenge in my life. And the next day, I got a Bible app on my phone, and this year I'm reading through the Bible, through the entire Bible in a year. I've done it once before a few years ago, and I decided to do it again. Well, I'm on Deuteronomy. Now, Deuteronomy is important because it gives us a lot of the law and how Israel was created and the Jewish law and so forth and so on. And it's very important the way God set them apart and what he expected of them so he could make sure his lineage came through them and that Christ could appear, and we end up with where we are this week. But it was Deuteronomy. Now, it's hard. It's like a lot of just law stuff and just sort of repeating things, and it's important, but it's not the most exciting read, okay? And every time I thought, okay, I finished, and I was hoping the next day I'd open it up and I was out of Deuteronomy. There is more Deuteronomy. So The next day after I prayed for God to give me a scripture, there's Deuteronomy. It's like, ah, it was like 4 Deuteronomies. And below that was a psalm. So it wasn't like just going directly in order, like after Deuteronomy to Joshua. It was Deuteronomy, Psalm 91. I go, what is this? Why are they throwing in a psalm? So I read my Deuteronomies, and then I read Psalm 91. And it's like blowing up in my mind. This is God saying, I'm with you. I am your defense. You do not have to fear. You are under the shadow of the Almighty. I am your wall and your fortress. You do not have to fear the terrors of night or the arrows that fly in the daytime or the any of the evils that would try to come at during the day and so forth and so on. I'm going to memorize the whole thing. But it showed up, and it just was so important because I felt like, God Almighty, I raised my hand. You gave me this. This is your word to me personally. And later that day, one of my friends who saw the post of me saying, just pray for me, did a prayer and sent it on an email. And he was praying it and praying it and praying it. And at one point he said, and you also are protected and prospered, just as it says in Psalms 91. What? He didn't reference any other passage, but then he mentioned Psalm 91. To me, let all things be established. In 2 or more, let all things be established. So in council. So God had given me this 91. After Deuteronomy, it just stuck out like a sore thumb. Psalms 91. I read it. It's like, this is for me. I'm accepting this as your word to me personally. And then my friend calls it Psalm 91. It's like, it's confirmed. This is yours. I can accept this as done. And now I have to fight it. I got to continue on it. But I just wanted to encourage you that maybe when you're going through something's really rough, you say to God, give me your verse. Give me the verse from me. You speak it out to me. You speak it to me, and I can receive this, and I can get some strength and some knowledge, knowing that you are a personal God. You do know the numbers of the hairs on my head, and that you do care about me, even that's such a small journey, such a blink, and then we're with him in eternity forever. But while we're here, let's be bold. While we're here, let's serve God. You know, if you want to watch this podcast grow, we're going to continue to try to find more content, unique content, and different things. So join up. The mighty 10,000. I'm trying to get 10,000 people that will give $3 a month. Many of the people watching right now are part of the mighty 10,000. And if you join the warrior, which is the next level, or the special forces, it's a little bit more. But then you will have access to the special guests and their special answers that nobody else gets to see. You also can get a shirt that will be signed with your special mighty 10,000 number, signed by me, and film in it so you can see it. And then we'll take a picture of you and put it up on the podcast so we can see you. And this is how we're trying to grow this ministry. This is what we're trying to do. I want to get out into the marketplace. I want to just do the best I can to minister to as many people as I can while God allows me to do just that. So join up, sign up, get 7 people to sign up, and I'll send you your own free shirt. If you already have a shirt and you got 7 people to sign up, I'll send you another one, or something else. I'll figure something out, and I'll find some other shirt that maybe we're not selling, and I'll send you something. I'll give you something. I just deserve it. But Wyatt, I think it's time we head on over to Cletus, because I'm going to be filming in April 20th in Virginia Beach at the FFX Center, and you guys can see. I don't know if anybody watching is in Virginia, but it's going to be in Virginia Beach. FFX Theater, and or send notes. If you have friends in that area, come out. Let's fill it out. Let's really have a great time with the new material, and see what God might do with it. But the guy that's going to kind of open the show for me and bring some laughter and really just sort of partner with me, his name is Cletus Cassidy. He's a comic. He's a black comic. Now that's important to me because I really just have got to say, if we don't come together as a nation and find commonality, we just can't survive. We can't. And so you have to go out of your way and listen. Let's just be honest. We're friends with people we're used to, and usually they look the same as us. Not always, but usually. So you have to go out of your way to decide to just connect to as many people as you can, to be a missionary out there in America, and to reach people and to just give them hope and give them love and give them empathy and give them whatever you're looking for. Go give it to somebody first. And so I wanted to have this conversation, and it's not just about, matter of fact, very little of it is about the show coming up. Most of it is about being a comedian. Is there a difference between black comics, black audiences, white audiences? How do we talk to each other? Can we have these conversations? I want to have real conversations, not fake it, not pretend that we're having them just because we're sitting here looking at each other. And there's some really interesting insights from him that I think you're going to enjoy. I think you're going to like this conversation. Keep it up. Keep talking to each other. You know, White and I are always watching. But I think you're going to enjoy this. So we're looking forward to spending some more time with you as you enjoy this interview with comedian Cletus Cassidy. Well, you know, folks, one of the things that I think I've always done a little bit interestingly, maybe not, I don't know, who am I to assume I'm interesting, but let's pretend that I am. When I put together Brad Stine Has Issues, I got to be very honest with you. I was less interested in interviewing comedians and more interested in interviewing people from different walks of life, different expertises, different strengths, different weaknesses, certainly different points of view. I didn't care if you're an atheist. I don't care if you curse or don't curse. I don't care if you are an astrophysicist or a garbage man. Means nothing to me. I just like talking to people that are interesting. And the truth is, everybody is interesting if you take time to listen to them. But in this particular show, I do have a comedian. Is a comedian that I've just gotten to know a little bit, and will probably know a lot more personally as time goes on, because he is going to be partnering with me as I perform at the FFX Theater on April 20th in Virginia Beach, where I will be filming my 7th album, Laugh While It's Legal. And so I wanted to bring him on. I wanted to discuss not only that event, but honestly, more importantly, comedy from our different perspectives, from our different histories, from our different points of view, and yet what we have in common, what we don't, how we navigate that. But ultimately, what are we here on Earth for? What are we doing? Is there a bigger picture to all of this? And that's what's made Brad Stine Has Issues, I guess, unique, is that comics aren't nearly as vapid and myopic as you may think, but normally we're fairly interesting people that really are interested in the big questions. So I want to bring on, if you would welcome me, a comic and a very important and interesting guy as he helps me into my 7th and perfect album, because 7 is God's perfect number. Cletus Cassidy, please say hi. How are you, my friend Cletus?
I'm doing good, Brad. Thanks for having me on, man, and thank you for calling me a lot of multi-syllable words, and I'm not 100% sure that I knew what they meant. I don't think I'm myopic. I'm wearing my glasses.
Yes.
So I think that's okay. But other than that,
well, you got to understand that
here.
when I use those hypersyllable words, I don't understand them. What I've paid a professional thesaurus-y guy to just give me words to throw out, and it gives the illusion that I know what I'm talking about. And here's what you understand: if you use enough hyperbolic words, people for the most part won't look it up, and it'll make you look smarter than you are. Because trust me, I'm not. But it doesn't matter, because I'm smart enough to bring you on. Brad Stine Has Issues. And so we're going to talk about a lot of important things today, I believe. Certainly about this event you and I got coming up here on April 20th. But there's so much more that you and I get to discuss today that I think could have some much larger ramifications, if I may be so bold as to believe
you may
that,
be.
Yes, that perhaps that you and I might actually have a piece of the puzzle of the meta-narrative that is causing such strife in America. But before we get started, Cletus, I gotta ask you a question.
Go with it.
Your name is Cletus Cassidy, which is fine. Good name.
My stage name.
Interesting name. Powerful name. I've got to ask you about the last name, brother.
K-A-S-S.
S-S. D-Y. Now,
A-D-Y.
I don't know if that, huh?
Kassady.
ADY, right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was an Ellis Island thing that they just sort of made it up. I don't know if that was something that your ancestors just created out of whole cloth, but tell me about Kassady. I've never seen Cassidy spelled like that.
So let me give you the 100% honest truth about it. Uh my origin story, which is gonna be hilarious when I give you all of this. I started off in radio. So I never had a desire to be an entertainer. Well, you had kind of dreams. I guess like every kid kind of has dreams of one day I might be on TV doing different things. So for me, it was either, sports. I wanted to be part of a boy band for a while. I went through these phases. But when reality hit, I had the kind of parent who didn't believe in that. Like my mom was very strict on, you ain't gonna be no artist when you grow up. You know how many starving artists are out there? You're gonna get yourself a real job. You're gonna be a doctor, a lawyer, something like that nature, right? So I ended up going to college. Now, when I go to college, when I start thinking about careers, I didn't want to work. So I was like, what job can I get that I don't really have to work? And the only job that I could think of that you didn't have to work was PE teacher. I look back over my life, none of my PE teachers ever looked like they had a stressful day, and they got to make kids do push-ups. So I was like, dog, this is it for me. Like I can abuse children and just go ahead, man. This is perfect. So I went to school to be a PE teacher. So, but I still always had this personality, just being who I was. Started in hosting stuff. I went to Norfolk State University in Virginia. And so when I'm in school, like they start asking me to host events and doing things like that. I had a guy come to me. He was like, hey, man, we're going to start a radio station. Would you like to be on the radio? I'm like, cool. So my birth name is Nicholas Gordon. That is my birth name. That is my given name. It's on any checks, anything of that nature, right? So when we go to get on the radio, it's our first day on radio. We've gotten all the music. We got a schedule. We kind of know what we do. We don't have radio names. We all are just in there. And you just can't talk, hey, Nick, hey, Phil, hey, like, unless you're doing talk radio. This is like, it's urban, contemporary, hip hop. We got to figure out some names. Only thing that could come to my head, I'm a comic book guy. Only thing that came to my head was Spider-Man comics. So the three of us ended up being Peter Parker, who is Spider-Man's real name, Black Cat, who is Catwoman's real name. So we had Black Cat, Peter Parker, and I took the villain, Cletus Cassidy, who was a villain named Carnage. And so I never thought it was going to stick. But because it's a first and a last name, it kind of just stuck, and here we are.
Well,
So
I mean, but I got to tell you, it's cool because it's a cool sounding name. But I think the way it's spelled and whatever, you kind of don't forget it. I mean, it accomplished its mission. If you're trying to give yourself a moniker that kind of stands out, you succeeded.
Yeah.
But I was thinking it was. I didn't
way
know.
deeper.
I didn't know the origins of it, or what.
Yeah,
It was just an
no.
odd spelling. I was just curious where that came from, or if you understood it. But if it sounds like it was made from whole cloth, so God bless you. You created your own name. You
It's got
created
me into a lot
yourself
of
in the image you just you decided.
it
Well,
is. I got into a lot, and you get this with comedy. I got into a lot of white rooms just being Cletus. So like
Yes.
they were like, "Yo, well, let's bring Cletus in," and I'm
Yeah.
there. They're like, "So are you carrying his stuff? Like, why are you here?" I was like, "No, I'm Cletus." And they're like, "You are not." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, I really
I
am."
know the few Cletuses, and you ain't looking like them.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
it's interesting because it is funny, isn't it? How names can have stereotypes, right, and be attached to stereotypes, and I think what it does tell us is a little bit bigger picture in general of the desire or the comfort or the easiness it is for people to find categories to put people in. It's just easier to caricature somebody. It's easier to find a category or a slot that we can put you in, so I don't have to deal with you. I don't have to get to know you. I don't have to try to understand your life or whatever. Let's just kind of put you into a category that kind of just defines you and makes it simple and superficial. And that is, I think, a good lead in to really what I wanted to talk to you about, Cletus, among other things today. And it's obvious. It's obvious that we live in a nation that is as tumultuous and challenging and as blood, sweat, and tears that created this nation and the hundreds of years in it, that it came with a lot of baggage, and it came with a lot of history that no one is proud of and no one is pleased about. But that's kind of like looking at your own life and saying, okay, is your life exactly how you would wanted it, or is part of the journey making horrible mistakes so you can learn from them and grow from them and move on from them? So here you and I sit, Cletus Cassidy, a black comic, Brad Stine, a white comic, if we want to make the simple.
I thought we were going to say fat and skinny. Okay, so we're
Yeah,
going
well,
black and white.
okay,
Okay, that works
we can
too.
go with that route too if you want to. But the point of the matter is, one of the things I always liked about comedy and is that it didn't really, it had one criteria. Are you funny? That's how they measured you. If you go up and tell jokes and people laugh, you're a comic, and nobody needed to categorize it one way or the other. But we live in a culture that seems to want to do that. And so one of the things I want to ask you is, if we're going to have a productive conversation today, and I want it that way, then we need to stop with the superficial platitudes like, oh, we need a national conversation about race. We need a national, because people say that to sound like they have some great ambitions. But then when you try to have the conversation, you're ridiculed, you're critiqued, you're maligned, you're accused of insensitivity. Suddenly you can't have the conversation just because you're ignorant, perhaps, of somebody else's life and their history. And how else do you get anywhere but to ask questions? So let's start with that. When you start your life, when you think about your life, Cletus, and the way you move forward and interact with people, how do you perceive the people you come in contact? If you come across the white guy, do you first think he's white? Now let's see what we're dealing with. Do you just see a person and take it from there? Let's start with you. How do you judge or assess people based on their appearance when you first come into contact with them?
So let me be honest about, a couple of things with me as far as that's concerned. I don't think there's a such thing as I don't see color, unless you're dogs. Dogs don't see color. They literally don't. Or if you have some kind of medical condition, yes, you don't. But
so if I just so I can make sure, I don't want you to cut you off, but if that's true, then if I was accused of seeing color, could I identify as a dog? And that way my color blindness will have to be validated.
You would have to be considered K9. That's the only way.
I just want to make sure I understand the game.
That's the only way.
Okay,
yeah,
needed the plan. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I of course grew up here. I grew up in the South. Okay. I have a particular set of circumstances and things that my environment has brought upon me. But if I see an individual, like when I met you, here's my thing. I know that you're a white guy. That's an obvious, like you said, that let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
That's my thing. From that point of view, mine is the now what. If you put another black guy in front of me, I'm like, okay, it's obvious he's a black guy. Now what? Because I realize that there are good people and bad people in both color. There's good black people. There's horrible black people. There's great white people. There's horrible white people. It's the color of your skin does not predetermine whether you're going to be a good or a bad person.
Yeah.
Now, and I know the content of your character is what it is. That's not it. Now, when you start talking about like a national discussion on race, here's my whole thing. So many people are not able to get into open and honest conversations because they're not willing to take the second part of conversing. Conversing is not just me talking. It's also me listening. If we're going to have a conversation, there has to be a time that I'm actively listening. And that is just taking in what you're saying, not to rebut it, not to formulate. Because if you take time and be like, Brad said this. Okay, let me tell you how this is how I rebut him doing that. The whole time that I'm thinking of my rebuttal to what you just said, I completely missed whatever came after that. So we don't know how to completely listen to people. Let me listen to you. Let me find out what it is and let me respect it. I can take somebody's opinion that I don't agree with. I can 1,000% not agree. We can be diametrically opposed on something, but I can respect your ability to have that thought process.
Yeah.
And then deal with that thought process as it comes. You put me in a room with a Klansman. of course, I don't agree with what the Klansman says, but I can respect his ability to look. That's your choice that you've made in your life. These are the reasons why I don't agree with what you said. I know I'm not going to always be able to convince you otherwise either, but I'm good. I think the Bible gives you the whole dust. Wait, look, brush the dust off your feet. You don't got to sit there and argue them to a T until you lose your life and your blood pressure high. Get in, say what you do, respect them for where they are, and that's how I treat people. So it's not about the color of your skin, not about what the clothes that you're wearing. I'm just going to see you as a person first, that this is what your appearance is, and then, okay, cool, but what are you fundamentally? You being a white man is not who you are. There's no definition that says white man. That means you now have to do this. You have to wear Dockers. You only can wear boat shoes. You got to wear Hey Dudes. And you got to do this. And then you be like, oh, that's a black guy. He's got to wear Levi's, Jordans. That's what you're born into. No, the content of your character, your life experiences all add up to who you become. So I see who you are, and then I'm like, so what's next?
Well, that's obviously admirable and necessary if we're ever going to be respectful and dignifying each other. But the truth of the matter is, and this is what I find just problematic in the way that we try to simplify complex ideas. And here's what I mean. Cletus, you don't go through any second of your life that you come across a person or a place or an area or a car or a news flash or whatever, that you don't try to evaluate it based on your experience, that you try to look at this thing and understand from your lens, your worldview, what does this mean to me? How do I fit in or don't? Is this a threat? Is this something that I should embrace? Is this something that is helpful and I can grow? Is this something that I need to be leery of because this is a red flag? Well, the only way you can make wise decisions is to experience the best and the worst of everything. It's the only way you can evaluate things. So the truth of the matter is, and remember this, we're taking a risk today, you and I, Cletus.
Okay, we're gonna have I love risk.
Yeah, no. And I know you do. That's we've already talked before and on Duke's show, and we're getting to know each other and hopefully become friends. But we're going to take a risk. We're going to actually have a conversation on race.
Okay.
And if the people care about that and have the courage to just listen without preconceived notions as to what is implied in the answer, we can get somewhere. But you can't prejudge somebody's bias that you projected onto them and then color everything through that lens, because then it's impossible to have a conversation, because it's not a conversation if you're not communicating.
Correct.
And you can't communicate if you don't believe what the other person's saying, unless they're lying. Okay, so here's the thing. If I come across you for the first time, the first thing I'm going to think is he's black, because it's the first thing I see.
Absolutely.
What am I supposed to pretend like? You're some entity that's just floating around bipedal flesh bag with a different shade than I mean, come on. We look at a guy, that's the black guy, there's a Chinese guy, there's the white guy, there's the short guy, there's the tall guy, there's the fat guy. Hey, look, there's the old guy. Oh, there's a child. Look, there's a baby. Look, he's in a wheelchair. He's a sick guy. Come on. You got to
absolutely
see it, and you just say, that's what I see. So what? And so I think that it's impossible to pretend like we don't see color, like you said. But Morgan Freeman said something. I'm sure you've seen this clip. I think it was on 60 Minutes a number of years ago. I think it was Mike Wallace was interviewing him, and he's talking about Black History Month. And Mike Wallace said, "You said you don't want to have a Black History Month." And he goes, "No, I don't." He said, "Why not?" He said, "You're going to relegate my history to a month?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I mean, don't you? Do you want your history relegated to a month?" He goes, "Well," and Mike Wallace said, "Well, I'm Jewish." He said, "Okay, what's your month?" "Well, I don't want a month." He said, "Me neither."
I think June would be best.
June would be good. I'm not
just because of the natural, just the natural June and Jude, like all of that works. I think they should get that.
It would flow in
so smooth. June is Jewish, yeah.
but so that's a good insight, and we can certainly bring that to Congress. But he said, do you want to relegate your life history to a month? And he goes, no. And of course, Wallace, you could tell, was flustered because he wanted Morgan Freeman to just give him the, yes, we really need this. We're such victims that we need our special. And he couldn't understand how a man was so strong, so talented, so self-assured of himself, who was older, by the way. So he's gone through it.
Right.
Went through Jim Crow.
He's got a different perspective.
He really went through it. And he said, how do we stop this? And he said, I don't want to do the color thing no more. In other words, I'll tell you what, I'll stop calling you a white man. You stop calling me a black man. We're just Americans. Let's just start there. Now, this is Morgan Freeman, who certainly has a lot of cachet because he's talented and he's very well respected and he's black.
That is one of the things that I've noticed about Morgan.
Yes, and
he's lived over 200-300 years as a black man.
Yes, and he maintained that his entire career, and I got to give him credit for that. I give him accolades. But my point was simply this. So to even begin to heal or find some
a common ground, a place to
some common ground. That's it.
Spring ground.
To find some common ground, we need to find a baseline that everybody can feel comfortable with. Now, normally I would say, well, how about you're an American, you're a citizen of the United States of America, because that's where you live. You have a constitution that gives you these particular things. Now, I'm guessing that may be problematic to some blacks. Yeah, but we were not given the same rights as that. It's like, okay, well, so what would you suggest? Let's say we're starting from scratch. They're watching this interview, and everybody has decided, I'm watching Brad Stine and Cletus Cassidy, and I've never seen two more brilliant minds go at it in history. We're going to give them the keys to the kingdom. Whatever they decide to tell us how to make us all get along, we're going to listen to them. So let's start. What would be a common ground from your perspective, black perspective, or is there one, where we could all feel like, well, we could all kind of start here, and I think everybody would then have the same options to move forward now based on this?
So there's a duality to that. So, I don't know. Let's look at theoretically the United States, and I like the fact that you use the United States, the life of the United States, as a springboard. The life of the United States isn't old enough for us to have a common even at any point right now. We're just not old enough. We just have not grown far enough away from where some of the institutionalized systems that were put in place to hold other people back. Because if we're honest about what America was built on, America was built for rich white male landowners, not poor white male landowners, not women, none of, like, if you were rich, powerful, then they put those systems in place. Those who were able to vote.
Can you tell me what system particularly?
When we talk about our voting, our government, our land ownership, even slavery, those kind of systems, those were the people who wrote the laws, who made the laws, who determined at that point in time, who is any of us to be able to decide that, oh no, that's not considered a human being, that's considered 3/4 of a human. Like, wait, I'm a 3/5 of a human. No, I'm an entire human. So now who is able to deem that a black person is considered property and not a human being, not with the same rights to life, not the same things of those nature? Now, what we end up with is we've set up a lot of stuff as far as American systems, right? From that point in time. And those are the mistakes that we talk about in our growing. If we would have came over and been like, America is truly the home of the free. If it's truly the home of the free, it's home of wherever you come in, you get what you get it. We giving everybody the same amount of land. Everybody has the same opportunities. You never had to fight for any type of equal rights and things of that nature. If we started there, now we can say we had a common ground. But because we started and there were individuals who were given a certain an advance in the race. Let's just say we're all running 100 meters. Well, some people have already started at the 20-meter point. So you can't just say, okay, well, we're going to make the rules fair now. even though they've got a 20-meter lead. I can never win. And it's also not fair to tell those people that they can't advance anymore.
Hey,
You have
Cletus,
to
I got to tell you
stop.
something, buddy. I got to tell you something, buddy. If they put me 100 yards and gave me 20-yard advance, the black guy at the start,
Probably still gonna win.
kill me. He'd still destroy me. I'm sorry, not a good analysis.
You're not a good. You don't run well, but just talk about if the light. If all of us are able to run the same speed,
Yeah.
able to do the same thing, the 20-meter lead, and it's not fair for me to tell you that you're not allowed to run any further. So like when I see a lot of pushback from, and not people who have open mindsets like yours, I hope I didn't freeze up on you. It looks like I did. You can still hear me, but you
Yeah, I
can't
can
see
still
me.
hear you. Go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna try to get my camera right really quickly. But if we can't come back and just say, I'm going to tell Brad he can't run. And I think that's what a lot of the pushback you see from individuals like, I don't want my rights infringed upon. It's not fair. I don't like equal rights. I've seen them fuss about everything. Why are we forgiving student loans? I worked hard to get where I am, and I shouldn't have to pay for anybody. Just because I work in a car dealership and you went to college and that my tax money. No, I'm not saying that. So that's the first thing. I do think though, as we develop, in this country specifically, as we begin to develop, as we make our strides and we start making our changes, things start to even out. So I do think that time is going to be a prevailing factor, especially here, in how we can come to a common ground thing, because we're gonna become more advanced. Our mindsets are going to change. There's going to be more conversations like you and I talking amongst other people, and there's going to be actually open conversations with people who are genuinely interested in making sure things work. You know what I'm saying?
My concern, though, Cletus, I don't know if you're able to get your camera back on. Love to see it.
I'm working on it right now. It's not
Okay.
on yet, but I'm gonna get you.
Okay. My concern, though, is that there's a lot of money and power and leverage to be gleaned from not wanting to have real conversations, from not wanting to find common ground, from not wanting to heal, from not wanting to be respectful and dignified, and realize that every human being has his own story and his own dignity, and that if we are able to approach people like that individually, that perhaps we will find the good where it lies. So, I feel like you just said, you have to choose to want to have the conversation and care about it, and it's easy to say, I want us all to be treated fairly and equally. Anybody can say those words, but to do it, to actually do it, is the problem. Nobody, you don't know me. You don't know my life. You don't know my
No,
history. You don't know who I am, what I
and
grew up
vice versa.
Yeah.
Correct.
So obviously, your perspective is going to be tainted, as is mine, by a history of a life that we've lived and things we've experienced. And the truth is, if you've experienced, I don't know, if rich people have always done you dirty and ripped you off and treated, maybe you're going to be gun shy of rich people.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're going to just presume, oh, he's a rich guy. I've met them before. I know what they're all about. And so we're kind of trapped in something that I believe only Christ can heal, and that is change your heart. The truth of the matter is, Cletus, and I've come to this conclusion a long time ago. When I started out in this business as a comic, I was just trying to be funny, because that's hard. It's hard to be funny, and it's hard to let people like you enough to want to pay to see you, and that they keep bringing you back. And so when I destroyed my mainstream career by deciding I'm going to identify as a Christian and comic, and in a conservative perspective, I just felt like I wanted to say, how free are we? Do we care about free speech? Do we allow everybody with every point of view access to the table of ideas, and the people can choose to watch or not? The people can choose to participate or not, but that's what freedom is. And so, when I kind of took a perspective, I will say this, it was helpful to me in many ways because I found an audience that was grateful that somebody dignified their point of view. They were grateful. And it's no different than a black comic working a black crowd with black references. It's no different than the Asian guy working the Asian crowd, whatever. No different than the gay comic working the gay room in San Francisco with gay references. Why wouldn't you connect to people that like how you see things and how you see the world?
Relatability.
Yeah, relatability. And so, do you find, I will say this, you have certainly been put in a position where you've had to work in front of white crowds
Very
more
much so.
than I've had to work in front of black crowds. Honestly, Cletus, I could go through my career and never work for a black crowd in my life. I could.
That is very true, and become very prominent in that way.
Yeah, I could do that.
And
I've worked, I don't know how many churches I've worked in my lifetime. I've never been invited to a black church. They've never asked me. I'm not saying they have anything against me. I'm just saying
right.
most churches invite me. And so that's kind of like, I'm happy to go there, but nobody have invited me. Nobody's interested. And so I worked at Black College many, many years ago. I think I told you the story, but I'll say it here since we didn't say it on my podcast. And I was a little nervous because honestly, I was kind of new in comedy. I didn't have the chops yet that I would have felt more confident with. But the truth is, I'm looking at a sea of people that I'm going, I don't know if I relate to them. I don't know if they're going to relate to me. I don't know what they see up here when I come up here. If they're going to think, oh my, what's this guy doing here, right? And I'm sure that's what you felt perhaps the first time you were in front of a white crowd. Hey,
Very much so.
Yeah, I can't just use my references or my nomenclature. Can't just throw out the terms we use because maybe the white guy doesn't get that. So suddenly everything has to change. I worked in Australia, and it's Australia. They speak English. And I literally went to the compere, who is what they call the MC. I said, could you just give me any thoughts about what you hear to me when I perform? Anything I'm missing? Well, I had a joke that I caught where I used the word ketchup. It's the word ketchup. And he goes, we get U.S. TV. We got McDonald's. We know what ketchup is. Yeah. We call it tomato sauce in Australia. So you might want to just call it tomato sauce. Because if I have to translate ketchup and they go, tomato, you're going to lose the joke because now the rhythm has been thrown off. So I said, just use their words.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hiccup, and they get to follow the laugh all the way through. So if I had to do that with English, right, then working a crowd that perhaps has idioms and so forth, and again, nomenclatures that perhaps I don't use, it's not going to connect as well. So would you consider it harder for a black comic to work for an all-white audience or a white comic to work for an all-black audience?
The opposite. I think it's harder for a white comic to work an all-black comic, a black room.
Why is that?
And it's because, hey man, listen, I've often wished I was a white man, but I realize it's not easy to just say whatever you want to say as a white man, if we want to be honest. So as a white man to go into a room, for example, a white comic can't really go into a black room and do white people do this, black people do this jokes. They have to be very, very, very sensitive about that because they don't ever want to be considered racist. They don't ever want to be considered talking down on a black crowd. Meanwhile, as a black comic, it's pretty much carte blanche. You can go in there and just say whatever you want to about a group of white, and most people aren't going to feel the same way. You won't get labeled the way that you're labeled if you go. You won't be considered a hate monger, all of those things. If you go in there, that's just a slippery slope. So I always think it's easier for a black comic if you have material. If you have good material, it's easy for you to take your good material as a black comic and go into a white room. And what I've also realized is that a lot of times both black and white people have the same experiences. We just don't realize we have the same experiences. So a lot of times the experiences we've had as black comics, we think only black people feel it. But we go in there and white comics like white people are like, oh man, I had that exact same type of situation. I went through some of that same thing. Now there are certain situations that you're going to feel that are strictly in your from your point of view, but they're not different. And I wanted to say this earlier, and I almost forgot it. I think we throw the term racism out too quickly. I think we throw the term racist out quickly. More people are prejudiced than they are racist. And prejudice is not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you respond to those prejudices. If I've only been around 9 pit bulls in my life, and all 9 pit bulls attack me, when I come to that 10th pit bull, I've already prejudged him because he's a pit bull. All 9 have attacked me. I'm going to treat him a bit differently because every pit bull I've ever met has attacked me. You'd be foolish to just automatically go in there with no. That's probably why you got bit by the other 9, because you didn't learn from the first one or the second one or the third one. Hey, this behavior or they do this. I'm definitely, if there's any pit bull people out there, I'm not saying pit bulls are bad dogs. And if you want to use Yorkies as the example, you can. So having prejudices.
Well, I'm terrified of Yorkies. I don't know if I mentioned that. And I probably should have brought that up. I'm a little off.
They're little too.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take some Xanax as we speak now that you even brought up the word. But go ahead.
So prejudices are not necessarily bad. Prejudices are, like you said, what leads us. If we've touched stoves and we hurt ourselves, well, we're prejudged and know, hey, maybe I shouldn't touch the stove because the stove, that's just a learned response. It's a learned behavior to what you've already been, whatever the stimuli is, right? So prejudices are not necessarily bad. But when you don't have the ability to say Brad is a bad person because Brad is white, that's when we've gone wrong. I don't know that you're a bad person, Brad. Now, do we all have some semblance of saying, let me make sure I don't do this, or there's a possibility Brad can be that? I think that's very true. I don't think that anybody not named Jesus has the ability to see people strictly for what their heart is, strictly not caring about their past, whatever. I think we all have at least a twinge of it, because there will be things that you might do that'll surprise me. I'm a sports guy. Every white guy that can play well, if a white guy goes out and he dunks and he plays great, there's a smidgen of surprise. Even though I know white guys have been playing basketball, they were playing basketball first. And even though I've seen a lineage of great white basketball players, every white guy that comes out, I'm a tad bit surprised. Brad, I'm going to let you know something. You may not know this, and this I might get in trouble with your black viewer if I say this out loud.
Did you say black viewer?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead. I got one guy hanging on.
I might be letting off some black secrets, and I might get a knock on my door after I say this. But growing up, as I did, all black guys felt like they could beat every white guy. Didn't matter who he was. Hulk Hogan could walk in the room. He'd be like, yo, he's white. He can't beat me. That's just a prejudice that as dumb as it might be. And when a white guy beats a black guy, it's almost like it was like Obama winning the election. Like, this never happens. But that was just like a prejudice that we had kind of growing up. That's where we start having our problems, where your experience with 1 or 2 black people makes you think all black people are that. Black people are not a monolith. White people are not a monolith. Chinese people are not a monolith. I did a show one time for a group of Indians, not Native Americans, like literally people from India. And I had no idea when I went into that room I had no idea they even laughed. Because every last person of that descent that I had ever seen, whether it be a doctor, these were the places where I saw them. Doctor, I didn't have any close friends that I'm regularly having dialogue with. I'm only seeing them in my day-to-day, my doctors. I'm going to convenience stores and different places like that. I never seen them with like a drop of humor. Like, they've all been business is business. I've never, and I after it was over, I had to realize they have to go home. They have to go watch sitcoms. They have to have Bollywood is real. You know what I'm saying? But I just never saw it. So I walked in, I was like, yo, do these people even laugh? Am I going to be able to, are they going to find humor in what I think is hilarious? And it worked out well. it ended up working out, but you still go in with that twinge of fear, and not being able to articulate appropriately is where we get into trouble. If I went into that room and immediately knew none of them were going to laugh, that's where we're going to have an issue. But if we can actually admit, hey, and I actually went out on stage and told them, I say, listen, it's a shot in the dark for me. I ain't never been in this position. I ain't gonna do this, but let's try it out. And they were rocking with me from that point. I think people overall are smart enough, intelligent enough that they can understand when somebody comes with you with that kind of honesty.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I appreciate that honesty, because I think it helps us to navigate kind of the next level of this exploration, because you said something that was important. By the way, I knew it was true that there is Black prejudice against whites, because I'm not stupid anymore that I know there's white prejudice against Blacks. And I do like the way that you differentiated between racism, which is the easy out, so we don't have to deal with the ramifications of it. We can just discount it as you're just a bigot, so we don't even have to talk about it. But if it's prejudice, now it's something different, because everybody's prejudiced. I did I don't remember if it was maybe it was a rant on one of my podcasts, but it's talking about bigotry, the word bigotry. I said, everybody's a bigot, everybody, because bigotry simply means absolutely intolerant and unflexible about somebody else's point of view or perspective or whatever. I said, well, then I'm a bigot against Nazis, because I have no flexibility with these people. I'm a bigoted against Marxists. No flexibility, no room at the table. I think it's evil and it's demonic and it's deathly. So no, I'm a bigot towards them, if you want to use the term, because I don't want them to have a place, because it's destructive. So the words are so important. It's one of the things I've said in my shows for so many years. Whoever controls the words controls the people, because if you can redefine words or make them fit your category, then the other person has no way to engage you, because you've taken away their access to reality. For example, I think the word hate has been completely manipulated and taken from its origins. That should be a word you hear very rarely.
Because it's so powerful. Hate is so powerful.
It should be left for that. It's it's kind of like me. I don't know what, the Black youth groups or whatever in church, but, the white guys years ago started this awesome thing. That's the word they had to, oh, that's awesome. Oh, we're having a pizza party. Isn't that awesome? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then Joe, he got baptized. Is that awesome? Oh, and Jesus Christ saved me from my sins. Isn't that awesome? It's like, what? Wait, they're all in the same.
So Jesus Christ saved me from my sins is worth Little Caesar's pizza.
You're right.
The same level,
and
right?
The word awesome means awe-inspiring, where you can barely speak it and breathe. It's looking at a mountain range. It's looking at a sunset in Guam over the ocean. It's looking at the Alps, right? It's listening to a Beethoven symphony.
Sonnet, right? Mm-hmm.
It should bring you to your knees.
We use words inappropriately all the time, man. Well, one of the big terms that we use all the time is genius. Like people, oh my God, he's a genius. Yeah. Everybody can't. If everybody's a genius, then nobody's a genius.
Nobody's a genius. Well, that's what I meant by hate. So like, oh, you're a hater. Well, you hate on us, hate on you, and then you have to define what hate simply means. And I don't have it memorized, but hate would be disgust, absolute venomous, malicious thinking or feeling or behavior towards somebody else
or something, right?
Else, I guess. I don't know how deep. I can't. I'm not a thesaurus, but I'm sure it's a deep thing. But to say, hey, I think that men shouldn't be in women's sports. Oh, you're a hater. You're a hater.
No, like I feel the same way about phobia.
I have
like when they call everything a phobia, I'm like, that's not what this is. A phobia is defined as an irrational fear of something. Me disagreeing with it is not me being scared of it or irrationally afraid of it. It's not the same. Those are not the same thing. And so we live in a catchphrase type of society. So we throw everything out as a catchphrase, but a lot of the catchphrases we throw out, it just does, like you said, it doesn't fit what we're throwing out. Everything is not a phobia.
Unless you are so cowardly and so meek and timid and care so little about liberty and freedom and autonomy and agency and truth and reality that God Almighty gave you, that you will buckle and bow to these words to make people comfortable and basically accept this as true when it's not. And that's the point I'm making. A phobia is irrational fear. So we have ways of confronting phobias. If you have arachnophobia, you fear spiders. They make you go in a room of
Stand there and look
spiders.
inside us.
They make you just overcome it by saying, "Wait a minute, I'm okay. I have to learn to overcome this thing." So, if we go by clinical definitions and by human research and history of what actually is effective, if I'm confused or don't understand a homosexual, trans person or something like that, and they try to put phobia, shouldn't I confront you? That's the answer. Let's go talk about
put me in
this
a
thing.
room.
Yeah.
Send me if I'm homophobic, make me go to musical theater. I get it. Make me sit through Cats.
Well, but here's something that I think is important to understand is, like I said earlier, we don't know each other's lives and history. I've once heard, and I'm going to let you tell me this for a second, because it would become from your culture. Maybe, I don't know. You'll tell me, but I've heard over time anecdotal commentary by certain blacks, whether it's on a podcast or whatever, about the talk that they give to their sons or daughters, basically saying, listen, you need to know something. You're about to go into a white world, and they're going to be prejudiced against you, and you're going to have to work twice as hard, and things are not going to be fair, but just letting you know, so just try to be a good citizen, and blah blah blah, and that they kind of have to prepare them, I guess, psychologically, emotionally, for this potential racist or bigotry that may occur, so that at least they know what's going on. Now, is that true? And if so, how does that? Tell me about what that talk looks like.
So it's true, and I dislike it. It's one of the ugly facts of America. I think you do a disservice to your kids if you don't make them aware that there are. Let me try to make sure I'm very careful, because I don't want to discredit those who have the conversation. I also don't want to discredit those who don't have the conversation. I think the conversation is very necessary, but I also need you to realize that you paint the world that your kids end up living in, that as a parent, you're one of the very first people who lets them know what the world is like until they go out and experience it for themselves. And if you tell a child, you're never going to be able to make it in this world, you're not going to be able to do it, the world is white, it's not a black man's world, you're not going to be able to make it, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to work, they're going to believe you. And a lot of times, some of the things, it becomes an automatic crutch. It automatically becomes overwhelming for the mind of a child growing up. Conversely, I also don't think you just send them out there and let them believe that the world is all rainbows, right? If the ground around you, if there were landmines in that ground, you would do a disservice to your children by just telling them to go outside and play. Don't be careful. But if you let them know, hey, that's a minefield out there. So there's going to be certain areas. This is what I need you to look out for. If the ground is raised, if there's this, if there's that, there's a possibility that there's a landmine there. So your behavior needs to change in that way because of that. Doesn't mean the whole world is filled with landmines, but there are landmines available, right? So when you start talking about the experiences of being Black in America, there are instances that we, as Black people, because we have not grown to this utopia that we would love for it to be. Brad, it doesn't matter if we have these conversations, and if you and I can see things one way, the vast reality is we are, if 10% of American society. And I can't even give you that number specifically because I, of course, have not met everyone in America, right? Have I had more pleasant experiences with white people than I have negative? Absolutely, right? That's just a reality, right? Have I ever been robbed by a white man? Never. Have I been robbed by a black man? Absolutely. Does that mean I don't trust black people and can only trust white people? No. There are certain circumstances that you do have to let them know. There are still people out here who have a mentality that you're less than. There are still people out here who feel this way. There are still going to be neighborhoods that you go in and that people are going to be like, why are you here? They don't want you here. They don't think you belong there. They're going to be those situations. Do you let that detract you from being the best you that you can be? You absolutely don't. I want you to be aware of this, though. I need you to know that this is happening. Now, unfortunately, we still have facts that have shown that there are interactions that we have with police that are different than what white men have had. That's just an absolute fact. Whether we want to admit that it happens or not, it's true. Now, conversely, are there white men who have had negative experiences with the police? Absolutely. Cannot take that away. Brad, you have let's say, I can't put a number on it, but let's say you have a 25% chance of getting pulled over and that cop treating you a certain way just because he's a jerk, right? I may have 50 because he also pulled up because he's also racist. He might be a jerk, but he also may be a racist jerk. You might get that same racist jerk. He's going to treat you. He's going to be a jerk to you, but he's also realizing you're white. So I'm not going to add that little extra stank to it, right? I'm going to treat him differently because I'm a racist jerk. And I ran across that guy. But I'm also going to have that cop who's just a good guy. He became a police officer for the right reasons, whatever. But I still have to prepare my kid or my child for the reality that there are racist jerks out there. So when you get pulled over, hey, man, don't give them any reason because you don't know what biases he brings into it. You don't know what prejudice he brings into the car. So every police stop is going to be two separate prejudices. Because I don't know if this is a cop who's only dealt with gangbangers, and every time he's been in a stop, it's been gangbangers who look like me, who have responded by pulling out guns and shooting, that killed his partner, that did all these things. So he's coming to the table with that prejudice. Now I'm at the table with the prejudice of police have killed police have killed this officers killed this person, they killed Breonna Taylor, they've done this. I'm thinking this way. So now you have two separate prejudices meeting, and both at negative ends of the spectrum, rather than each of them just giving each other an honest opportunity to see who's coming to the car.
Yeah.
Who's in the car, right? So, but for me, you have to let them know there is a chance that he's coming with those prejudices.
Yeah.
But here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to add to them.
Right.
Don't want you to make any quick movements.
Right.
I want you to make sure this is the time for you to be polite. This is not the time for you to decide. My thing has always been, I worked in law. I worked in criminal law in a criminal law firm for about 15 years. I've always taught my kids, you're not going to win it. You're not going to win a ticket with the officer. That's not the place to win the ticket. If he says you were doing 9,000 in a 62, take the ticket for doing 9,000. We'll fight it in court, right? Let's not escalate that situation. So there are rules and things that you give them that you know, because there have been people who are bigoted.
Yeah.
And there are people who are bigoted and prejudiced. There are prejudiced people and there's bigoted people. So we definitely have that conversation. But I'm not saying that white parents don't have it. I just ain't never had white parents. Brad,
right.
I don't know if your parents have ever told you, hey, Brad, I'm giving you the keys to the car. Here are the rules. If the police pull you over.
Sure. You know, and I can tell you that because I was always taught, I really was. And you wouldn't know. All you can do is take my word for it because you're telling me your story, I'm telling you mine. But I was raised basically in Indiana and then Southern California by white parents, obviously, basically around white people, didn't have any black neighbors. And I was taught you will be respectful to all people at all times. Now, if somebody's evil to me or tries to harm me, trust me, I don't care what color it is. If I'm threatened, I'm going to defend myself.
Respond as such.
Of course. And that's just common sense. But I can give you a couple examples. When I was a kid, we were learning to pick teams or whatever you want to call for, let's say tags. So you got to pick the guy. So you put your foot in the middle and you'd go do a certain thing.
Bubblegum into this. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And so I was taught as a young boy, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a N-word by the toe. If he hollers, let him go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. This is probably 60s, early 70s. I'm a kid. Now, I went to my dad and said, Dad, I've learned how to find kids and pick them for a thing. Oh, yeah, what's that? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch an N-word. And my dad said, son, that's not a nice word. I don't want you to say that word. Let's just switch it to tiger. Catch a tiger by the toe. I said, oh, okay. Now here's what you need to know. A, I didn't know what the word meant. It was just
Correct.
it was just like it could have just been blah blah blah. It had no meaning to me. It was just a silly word that was part of a rhyme, meant nothing to me. And two, when he said it's not nice, I would rather you say this, because it references black people and we're all equal and whatever. I said, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that, but I trust my dad. I respect my dad. So, okay, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I'll switch. And I did. It wasn't a big deal, but somebody had to teach me because I didn't know. I was a little kid given information without any context whatsoever. And so that to me was an incredible, simple learning experience. It wasn't something I went to shout from the rooftops to find my virtue. I'm one of these good white guys, folks. It's just a life I lived and have tried to live forever. I remember when I was even starting, I was up in Seattle. I don't know if you've ever heard of a comic named Daryl Lennox.
I can't say it sounds like it for me, but I can't say that. Oh
Okay.
yeah, I'm definitely.
Okay, well, he was black and he was a Seattle comic, and I met him and another guy, Kermit Apio, who was from Hawaii. Anyways, we all kind of started together, and him and I did a lot of things together, and I kind of mentored him somewhat, I guess, because I guess I've been in it a little bit longer than him, and we were on some road trips together, and we became friends, and he came down to Southern California and stayed and everything. But my point was simply this: the commonality was we were comics and we were trying to figure out how to do comedy, and we all knew how difficult it was, and it gave us all we all started at the same starting line,
Right.
because I don't care what color you are, or even if somebody's trying to give you special privilege. If you ain't funny, you're not getting hired. They're not going to bring in a guy that sucks and keep bringing him back because he's the right color or fits the right demographic. It's not going to work. So
Right.
the truth is in the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, funny is different nowadays though, because funny is so subjective. So now, I mean, when you start talking about clubs, but I get exactly what you're saying. Funny is the funny, but when we start talking about clubs and stuff, man, it's really about butts in the seats. Because
It is,
it's a lot of
and
people. I'm like, they're not funny at all. They're not creative. They're not giving you anything, but they can
but
fill a room.
I think that do you mainly work clubs?
No, so right now I'm doing. If we were to do when we would have split what my breakdown would be, I'm probably about 60%, 60 to 70% churches, another 20% corporate events, and then 10% clubs.
And is it mainly black churches?
No, like if we're gonna do church breakdown, we're at like 98%.
Have you seen any of my material?
I did go back and watch some of your stuff.
Okay. Would it
And
work
I was definitely like, this guy's not gonna work in black church.
That's what I'm saying.
Like black church ain't for it. But I also watch black preachers and white preachers, and I can do the same. Joel Osteen is I think the exception to every rule. Joel Osteen is the white preacher that can work in just about any black church, but there's still a lot of black churches that don't want Joel Osteen. He's not fiery enough. He doesn't yell. He doesn't scream.
So you're thinking it's more about the style, perhaps?
It's a lot about style, because that's what's amazing to me about preaching. Because preaching, if you're preaching the gospel, same gospel, right? So it shouldn't matter. I'm giving you the same. So at least with comedy, you can be like your material. Well, we're now all the same comedian with the exact same material. If you're talking about the gospel, right? Every preacher should be preaching the same gospel. Now, you may have a different view of it. You may be able to see it differently and present
We're all
it
using
a
the
different
same
way.
bit.
We all got the same bit, right? So how are you bringing that bit through? So the presentation of it, the styles of it are different, what people kind of need as far as preaching is concerned. That's why there are so many preachers, I think, because people are like, it's chicken. How are you presenting it? I like my chicken fried. I like mine baked. I like mine flambé. I like mine in a soup. I'm not soup guys are not going to a fried chicken spot, because that's just not how I eat it. It's all still the same chicken, just a different way. And so I think people like style wise what different churches are. Like I've been to Catholic church, right? And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, it's too much standing, it's kneeling, it's dull, it's boring. There's no excitement to this, right? Um, where I'm like, but I also don't want to do holiness church. I'm like, yo, y'all are doing way too much. You know what I'm saying? So I find my little Baptist spot that I'm happy in. I'm like, okay, this works for me. And so it's just a style thing. So I think it's harder. It's harder for a lot of black preachers to go into some white churches because a lot of white churches don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah,
They're like,
right.
why is he yelling at me? Like Joel makes me feel good. Like this guy, he doesn't. So it's
Well,
different.
I've really appreciated your insights, your wisdom. I mean, we can continue to talk and certainly do more, I'm sure, before the time says. I do have a segment that I will do a special bonus question for subscribers. So I'll ask you that. You just do it like nothing's changed. It's just it'll be edited out for the people that subscribe. But I would like to say this. So, as a black comic, as a black American, but also as an American, and most importantly, a Christ follower, which literally makes you opaque. You know, we're just sort of literally, it's the only religion I'm aware of that told us how to fix the prejudice. He said, there's no Jew or Gentile, there's no bond or slave, there's no male or female. He said, yes, of course there's male and female, and be grateful for that in the uniqueness, but you no longer identify as male or female. You identify as a child of God. There is no slave or free. There's no class system in God's economy. Some will be rich, some will be poor. If you have a lot, give to others. If you don't have a lot, don't be coveting. Try to do better. Help each other. It is true that with poor will always be with you, but you no longer identify by your class. You identify as a child of God. And lastly, there's no Jew or Gentile. I've made a lot of different colors and shapes and ethnicities because I wanted the tapestry of humanity to be just like the flowers in the field and so forth. And appreciate your heritage and
Mhm.
appreciate it. Don't forget it. People once suffered, and learn from them and don't waste their pain. They tried to pass it on so you could overcome. But you no longer identify by that. You identify as a child of God. If we could get away from these superficial human foundations, be aware of them, respectful of them, but they are not our identity. We're made in the image of God. You literally could all get along because we'd see where you literally are in the family. Is there anything you could describe or tell to a white American who really does just trying to get along with everybody, really isn't prejudiced, doesn't understand what's happening in this country? A technique, I don't know, I want it to sound like a formula, but is there something you could tell us perhaps that we maybe don't understand or that you've seen has happened habitually that you think is just kind of insensitive and nobody meant it that way perhaps, but it's a way to help us understand your perspective in a way perhaps that we don't, not because we're prejudiced, but because we're just ignorant? Is there some kind of something that you could maybe help us understand and see in a way we can't or haven't up to this point?
One of the things I think I would love for everybody to know, that's black, white, or indifferent, is stop treating other people with kid gloves just because they have a different skin color than you, right? Just don't it Brad, if you just treat me, what's the golden rule? Do unto others as you have them do unto you. If we were able to do that, if we were able to simply master do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I think we would be so much further along. Brad, if you come up to me and you realize, man, as a man, I just want him to speak to me. I want him to be honest with me, talk to me, and then we're good, right? I want him to respect my views. I want him to listen to me. That's all I need. If I'm in line in the store, I want you to be in line, respect my space. I'll respect your space. Give me the same respect that I'm gonna give you, right? I don't think anybody in Black America wants anybody in white America to look at them as though they're a charity case or somebody that we have to give to, or we have to talk to with some kind of kid gloves, or we have to, oh my God, is it okay if I call you? Is it all right if I'm a person just like you are. What did I tell you my name was? If I told you my name was Nick, then you call me. If I told you my name was Cletus, call me Cletus. Like that's it. Are you able, like when you immediately give me like these deficiencies? Oh my, you do know You do know what a place setting is, correct? Yes, I know what a place setting is. Did you think we all ate off the floor at home? Like, do you think black people don't use utensils? Yes, I know what it is. I know it's this. Don't placate me in ways that make me seem less than.
Yeah.
Accept me for being at the exact same level as you are. If I'm in the room, I deserve to be in the room. That's one of the things. I just had a conversation with somebody about that, and I have that about my career. But I think people need to know that that affects them in life. If that person is in the room, they deserve to be in the room. They're in the room for a certain reason. I've had that feeling. I just recently did a show. I have this thing like when I get with people and I do things like you've got seven, it's your seventh album. I'll be working on my first it'll be really my second recording when I do mine. You got a seventh album. You've got all these accolades. So do I cower because I'm in the room with you, Brad? No. I'm in the room there's a reason why you're in the room and I'm in the room. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
That doesn't mean I respect you any less and what the things that you have done and those things that you have accomplished, but I'm in the room for a reason. I've had to have that conversation with myself, with my career wise, multiple times. Like I've been in a room and I've looked around the room and there's celebrities. I'm in the room with a DL Hughley. I'm in the room with a Tommy Davidson. I worked with Michael Collier for a long time. Like I work with a lot of these different artists. And sometimes I always almost feel like I need to take a back seat because they are this and I am here. No, I'm in that room for a reason. What I do put me in that room. So when I enter a room with you, Brad, just know, yes, I'm a black man, you're a white man, but we're both human and we're both in this room,
Yeah.
And when I say the room, let's talk about the room being the world. We're
Yeah.
both in this world
Yeah.
for a reason. I'm smart enough to count the point out the idiosyncrasies that we even have within the black community. I still think there's things in the black community that we need to work on, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we need to work on ourselves. We need to be like, hey, these are some of the things that we need to work on. My grandfather taught me this, that I've never been an African American. I don't know anybody in Africa. I've never been to Africa. I don't have any kinfolk that I say. I mean, if we're going that far back to make me an African American, that's just weird. But I'm an American, like you said. I'm an American. I live in America. Most people don't go with multicultural unless you do have dual citizenship. I don't have dual citizenship with anywhere in Africa, right? And I love the idiosyncrasy of if I ask black people, I say, so if it's a white man that lives in South Africa, is he an African American? But no, no. How does that not work? If you moved right now to Johannesburg and you decided to live there, I now live in Johannesburg. I'm now a citizen of Johannesburg. I was born in America. Are you now an African American?
No, I'd be American African.
Right. So like how does that work? And black people get mad. Hey, you know what it is because they stole our ancestry, they stole our history. Cool. But right now we live in the most technologically advanced time that we've ever lived in. And that's
Yeah.
true at every time. So whatever that you want or need, you can get and you can still have
Yeah.
your identity. You can kind of reconnect. We got to start moving. So I still think there's some things within our own community that we need to get over. But I think the biggest key to any person, any white person, any Jewish person, any Chinese person, Indian, whatever, meet that person in front of you as a human first.
Yeah.
Human first. You can't, like you said, you can't deny that it's a black human,
Yeah.
but it's a human. You
Yeah.
can't go, even your prejudices have to take a step back, right? Because the reality is you don't know my life experiences.
Yeah.
You can come in and assume, okay, this is a young guy, he's in the hoodie, he's in the hat, he loves hip hop music. The reality might be all I have in here is jazz. The reality might be all I listen to is country. You don't know that, but you can come in and prejudge. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Sure.
I can come to you and be like, hey man, Brad, you know this Beatles song. You know it. You're a white guy. Of course, all white guys know the Beatles. But you might not know them at all. I can't just assume you like Elvis. I
Well,
gotta
but
learn you as a
the
person.
truth is though, Cletus, and just in real time in my own life history, I didn't grow up with blacks in the neighborhood or whatever for the most part at all. And so it would have been a novelty, right? If a black guy was in the thing, I didn't care. The first friend I made when I moved to California was Mexican. I'd never, and I went to his house and his grandparents lived there and they spoke Spanish. I'd never heard this, like they speak another language. It was completely foreign to me because I'd never seen that. Didn't care. I didn't have any prejudgments about it. It was just, oh, this is different. Okay, this is another thing going on that I didn't know. I wanted to
Right.
play baseball my whole life, at least growing up. Played baseball through high school, loved baseball. was a Dodger fan. My dad was a Dodger fan, passed that on. So I was very proud of the Dodgers, certainly proud of Jackie Robinson and that experience that they ushered in, and proud that Branch Rickey was a Christian man and believed his Christian perspective was why he felt this was important, as well as Jackie was Christian. But I wanted to play baseball. I was short. I've always been short. So I kind of liked short guys that were good. I think the first people I can remember liking in baseball was Maury Wills, who was the shortstop for the Dodgers, black. Willie Davis, the center fielder for the Dodgers, black. Don Buford is the first guy I remember. This is 1970. Played for the Orioles because he was short and he could hit a home run. I was like, I'll never hit a home run. I want a short guy. Black. Hank Aaron, big fan, black. Willie Mays, how can you not be a fan? Black. Roberto Clemente, how can you not be a fan? Black. My point is, I didn't choose them to show what a open-minded guy I was. I saw guys that were great at something I loved, and I emulated it. I wished I could be like, they inspired me. I think the biggest, or at least one of the biggest mistakes or lack of appreciation for black from Africans who came to this nation as slaves. It's a terrible thing. We all know that, but nobody disagrees. Slavery has happened from the beginning of human history. It's still happening today. If you're using a cell phone to talk about how racist people are, I just know where that lithium came from. Know where that stuff came from slave labor of blacks in overseas. So it's still happening today. My church gives money to get families out of a brick kiln slave in Pakistan. So it doesn't make it right. I'm just saying this isn't something we invented. It's been around forever, and it's never going to go away because humans are evil and sinful, and we have to learn to be redeemed. But here's the point I've made before, and we'll just end with that. Tell me what you think. So here comes people who were taken from their homeland, didn't speak the language, forced into slave labor. They could have their children taken. They could have their marriages dissolved. They could be sold at a whim. They had no autonomy. They had no ability to vote. They had no ability to read. They had no ability to do anything to try to escape this situation. They're finally set free, but not equipped to handle society. They don't know what's, it's right. How do I integrate? I don't even know what, I have no education. I probably can't read. When they did try to do that, even in the South, Jim Crow and whatever, they weren't even given opportunities to go to and get an education. So strike after strike after strike after strike against this group of people who were literally, outside of maybe the Native Americans, had the worst starting position in America that you could have. I mean, the worst. You weren't at the starting line. You were behind the starting line.
Weren't even at the stadium a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of you was just trying to get a cab to the stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that being said, 250 years later, your people have become presidents, attorney generals, vice presidents, billionaires, the best athletes in the world, tech giants, scientists, moguls, landowners, astronauts. From the absolute worst case scenario, your people said, we will not be destroyed. We will show you who we are. And you became a proof of the American dream, even under the worst case scenario. So as bad as that scenario was, and it was, it should be seen and taught as an inspiration for the power and the strength and the courage and the dignity of your lineage to overcome and become great, irrespective of people thought of them. That should be an inspirational story, not used to degrade and to victimize people, but instead say, look what we did. This is who we are. And I feel like that has been lost by those who want to control the narrative so they can have power. Last thoughts.
So last thoughts on that one. So I listened to what you said about that. And what it always makes me think of is Tupac, great rapper, philosophical guy.
Folks, on April 20th, Cletus and I are going to be at the FFX Theater in Virginia Beach. I'm going to be performing Laugh While It's Legal, my 7th album of material. I think it can give you a good idea of what kind of material this is going to be. So if you are a Christian and that's the single most important thing in your life, as opposed to some kind of identity politics, you're going to love this show. If you love the Constitution, what it originally stands for, if you love free speech, if you love liberty, you're going to love this show. If you love fighting against those who don't want you to be free and want to control you, you're going to love this show.
So we should have all kinds of black people in it. No, go ahead.
Yeah, right. This is good. I'm going to get that one viewer you told me about earlier.
The black guy. He's showing up.
But Cletus is also going to give you great comedy from his perspective. But again, to show in real time instead of talking about it, this has nothing to do with anything other than we're comics. And we can either complain and wring our hands, or we can do something about it and change the dynamic by simply living life like everybody's on the same playing field. You choose if you want to participate or not. That's what we're trying to do. So come April 20th, get your tickets, fill this place out, and we're going to put this interview out. I was thinking about next week, but heck, I might even make it a special edition podcast and put it out again this week so we can get this out into the atmosphere. But Cletus, thank you so much for your time. Man. I hope that we get to know each other more and I get to understand a bit about your life, and hopefully we can just grow as buddies and friends, because life is short and America is in jeopardy. So we need as many people on our side as we possibly can, folks. God bless you.
That means it's 7:30 in America.
That's right.
That's when Jeopardy comes on.
Amen. You would know, folks. Again, I'm just trying to give you interesting people, important perspective. I hope they're honest conversations. I hope they're true, and I hope they actually help us get somewhere instead of just talking around each other or just platitudes, so we don't actually have to get to the deep places. Hopefully, we'll have Cletus back again. We'll go even deeper. Remember, folks, if somebody says you are politically incorrect, always thank them for the compliment. What a wonderful thing to say, that I'm not a cultural Marxist and I actually care about liberty and freedom, and talk about it. Good for me. PC free is liberty. And remember, folks, I ain't perfect. I'm just a man on a mission, doing the best I can on the last areas and season of my life, leaving a legacy. But I am, as God's comic, doing what God called me to do. I'm just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next week.